Hello tubers, this is Kurt with Edibles and Exotics coming to you from sunny Mesa, Arizona. And today I'm going to talk to you about soil. We're talking about soil in your yard, mainly in the valley here, but this probably pertains to a lot of other subtropical deserty kind of areas. So in the valley here, we have three types of soil. Our soil is mainly comprised of clay. All right, clay is decomposed rock. So rock that has basically been eroded by wind, water, ice, all that sort of stuff for, thousands or millions of years. And this area here, the valley, used to be an inland sea. All right, and that dried up, millions of years ago, and the earth lifted up. So I think our elevation, depending on where you are in the valley, it's somewhere around like 12 to 1,400 feet above sea level. So we're pretty high up. So mainly our clay soil, like I said, is decomposed rock. It's almost like a floury consistency. If you are in an area close to like the Salt River or a wash or something like that, a lot of those fine particles have washed away. So it's more of a gritty texture, which would be considered like a sandy kind of soil. Better drainage, more rocky, and a lot less minerals in it. So more kind of like a dead kind of soil, but very good draining, fast draining. If you are in an area that is close to the mountains or a hill, you're also going to get very rocky soil, a lot bigger rocks. You're going to have a mixture of that sandy soil and clay soil. Also out in the desert, like for instance where George is, my friend George that I did the permaculture video with, how to start a food forest in your backyard. He is butt up against the Superstition Mountains in Gold Canyon, and he's got a layer of caliche not too far down below the soil surface. Now caliche is minerals like calcium and stuff that have sunk to a certain level, usually about a foot or two below the soil surface level, and have solidified and turned into almost like a concrete or a mortar that's pretty impermeable to water, plant roots, and everything else. So you may have that. You'd have to dig down and check. Mainly our soil, if you have clay soil, a lot of people think, oh, I got clay soil, it's awful. Actually, it's really good soil. So here in the valley, really the only thing our soil is lacking is organic matter. All right. So without the organic matter, it's pretty sterile. There's not too much life in it. There's barely any worms. As far as bacteria, fungus, you rarely find any of that because there's just nothing for them to eat. They want to eat organic material. So organic material would be like, dead and decaying plant material. So if you drive around in the desert and pay attention, you'll see low-lying areas. And those areas, water tends to pool in. They're low, so plant material that gets blown across the desert floor gets trapped in those areas, and that's mainly where you're going to find a lot of plant life. You'll usually find bushes growing, cactuses, and stuff like that, and then the higher areas surrounding it are going to be pretty bare. So basically, in your yard, right, what you really need to do, the major thing you really need to do is get organic matter into that soil, all right? The clay soil that we have is very high in mineral content, but it's also very alkaline usually, all right? So the alkalinity is going to be anywhere from 7.5 up to, in some areas I've heard 12 on the pH scale, all right? And it is a logarithmic scale. Okay, so if you have a pH of like 10, all right, that's pretty high. If you want to get it down to 7, that is a huge jump, all right? If you're trying to get it down to 9, it's still a pretty big jump. You're going to have to add a lot of organic. So organic material is going to be acidic, especially as it decays and the microbes in the soil start to do their magic and work on it and break it down. That's going to release acids into the ground that are actually going to bring the pH closer to neutral, all right? It may take a long time. It all depends on how you prepare the soil. When it comes to soil, what you want to do is get that organic matter in. I see a lot of plant nurseries and people online Again, misinformation. They're trying to make a buck off you guys. They're trying to sell you worm castings and azomite and all this stuff to add to your soil to make it do this or that. You don't need to do that. Basically, if you follow my plant care grow guide, it tells you how to dig holes, how to prepare the soil and all that. I'm going to put a link down in the description, but if you don't have time to read that, I'm going to give you the general gist right here. So basically, all you want to do, you want to dig your hole to the decent size, little, you know, probably to like twice the size of your container that you're going to put in there. If you could go bigger, that'd be great. But all you want to do is you want to pull that soil out, that clay soil or the sandy soil or rocky soil, whatever you got. You want to pull it out and you want to mix it 50-50 with an organic material. So anything that's not so much chemical laden. You want to try to keep it a little more natural because you are going to be adding worms and stuff like that. So, you know, you could do composted cow poop. I would stay away from steer manure. Steer are fed a different diet and they produce a lot of nitrogen and it's very salty and it could burn your plants. So I would look for cow poop, not steer manure, okay? Composted would be the best. You do not want to use any sort of raw manure in the hole. You could put it on top of your plants to give them like a supplemental feeding of nitrogen and whatnot, but in the hole, you're going to want to keep it, you know, a mixture of cow poop, and they usually add like wood chips and stuff like that. And by doing that, you're going to loosen up the soil and you're going to create an environment for good drainage and microbes. So microbes are the biggest thing out here, guys. If you walk around in, you know, most of the valley, you're not going to see worms. You're not going to see isopods. You're not going to see springtails in the soil. They just won't live in it. It's clay. There's no organic matter for them to eat. So basically what we're trying to accomplish here is kind of like a natural forest floor. All right. And this is going to be the best environment for your plants to grow. So you do not need to add any of these worm castings, anything like that. If you're adding worm castings, all you're doing is you're adding already decomposed, digested plant material to your plants. All right. If you put worms in there or springtails, they're not going to eat that. It's already been digested. You might get some microbe activity out of it, but you're better off starting with the raw materials. Give it 6 months to a year and you're going to have way better luck. So after you get your hole dug, you get everything mixed up, you put your plant in there, you want to cover it with wood chips. If you can get untreated wood chips, a lot of the bagged wood chips at like Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, stuff like that, they're going to have a lot of the wood chips they sell are going to be treated so they don't rot. They're going to have dyes on them. So you got to do your research there. You don't want to put chemicals into your ground because you're going to be adding life to that to break it down. So either read the bag, go on their website, contact the manufacturer. It doesn't take too long to do. If everything's all natural, you're good to go, dump it on. So add six inches to a foot of wood chips. And then you can go to Walmart. You can go to any sort of bait and tackle shop and pick up worms. So you could do red wiggler worms. They're dirt cheap. I think Walmart for a container about this big and that deep, I think you get maybe like 15, 20 worms and it's like $6-7. It's not that much. Depending on the size of your yard and what you're going to do, how fast you want it to develop. It's up to you how many you buy, but one container should be good for 1 or 2 planted trees that you just planted. Another thing you need are isopods, so pill bugs, potato bugs, roly-polies, whatever you guys want to call them. The proper name are isopods. You can get those at reptile stores because they do use those for feeders for certain reptiles. If you don't have them in your yard and you want to bring them in, that would be your place to go. You could look online, but they're usually pretty expensive. You're better off with just getting feeders. And they're dirt cheap. You don't need that many because they multiply like crazy. As far as springtails, they're teeny tiny little decomposers. They mainly live in compost bins and stuff like that. But if you have heavily mulched yard like I do and like I recommend, they will actually show up on their own. All right. Now, as far as mycorrhiza, so everyone always talks about mycorrhiza. They go out and they buy, you know, Mycos or this or that. You know, they spend a ton of money on this stuff. Mycorrhiza is naturally in the air. All right. So it's on plant leaves. When it rains, it comes down. You don't need to buy it. Even if you get bagged wood chips, a lot of times they're going to have spores, mycorrhizal spores on them. And when you put them down, it's going to inoculate your soil. And since you have a lot of organic matter in there, it's going to spread very quickly. So you don't need to buy that, right? So basically all this stuff you don't need to buy. The only thing I would recommend buying are worms and isopods, and then a bag of cow poop and wood chips or mulch, whatever kind of, you know, if you want to just use leaves, whatever you want to use for mulch, as long as it's brown organic material. You don't want to put greens down like fresh grass clippings. If you do, you'd have to mix them in with the browns. You don't need the worm castings. You don't need the azomite. You don't need any of that crap. Don't worry about it. Just start your hole, get your good soil in there, mix it up, get your soil life. And I am not against fertilizer, all right, guys? If you start a hole, all right, you put your plant in there, and a month later, you notice signs of nutrient deficiency, or in 2-3 months, it's just not growing whatsoever. It's just sitting there and not doing anything. You can add fertilizer, all right? Just mix it in. You could use a water soluble. You could use like an Osmocote, any slow release. It really doesn't matter. You know, if you have a nutrient deficiency, you might want to look it up online and try to figure out what your plant's lacking before you just start dumping stuff on. You don't need to add the worm castings and stuff like that. That's just expensive waste of money. All right. You're trying to accomplish the same thing as you would with a chemical fertilizer. If you do it the way I'm saying to plant your plants and start your soil, it could take anywhere from 3 months to 9 months for your soil to be fully activated, full of life, and releasing nutrients. And if you use the worm castings and this and that, you're not getting there any quicker, okay? So it's going to take time. You need your soil to populate with microbes, start breaking down. Another thing that's very important, and a lot of people do not do this, is composting in place. All right, if you have mulch, it makes it super easy. You move some of the mulch aside, you take your kitchen scraps, you put them in there, you bury them, and just let them sit. That's going to feed your soil life. It's going to break down your worms, isopods, springtails, mycorrhiza, all that stuff is going to multiply like crazy, and it's going to feed off of that compost. That's all you need. I don't fertilize my yard at all. All right. If they do develop a nutrient deficiency, I'll try to figure out what they need, and I'll just spot treat that one particular plant, but it usually doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens with newly planted plants, but even there, you know, my yard's been heavily mulched for about 2 years now, and it just doesn't need anything else. I've tried fertilizing in certain spots just to see what it would do, and it just burned the crap out of my plants. I sat there for like 2 hours trying to flush all the fertilizer down. I put very little down, trying to flush it out, and you know, it took about 2 months for the plants to recover from that. So, you know, all I do in my yard is maybe once every year or once every 2 years, top off the mulch, and I just water and compost in place. That's all I do, and I have no problems growing anything. So if you're looking to just grow one tree somewhere, you got to keep in mind the size of the tree, the shape of the canopy, and all that. But you know, you're going to want your mulch ring, let's call it. That would be the ring of mulch underneath the tree. You're going to want that even with the canopy, maybe a little bit wider, because tree roots, even though they do mirror what's above ground, Below ground, they can spread pretty far. Sometimes, you know, you'll get feeder roots and stuff going 2-3 times the width of the canopy. So the bigger the better there. And that mulch is going to keep the soil cool, moist, and allow your feeder roots to really pick up nutrients. It's going to allow your soil life to really flourish and spread out. And who knows, you'll probably get bit by the bug and wind up doing your whole front yard or backyard like I did with wood chips, just to get everything growing better and greener. Another thing is shade. So you want to keep the soil cool. If you have 6 inches of mulch and you got no shade, it's probably going to get pretty hot even down to the actual soil level. So you might want to put some shade up around the tree for a little bit. If you have a foot, you'll probably be okay. And keep in mind, this is just for like the first year, something like that. Just to keep your soil nice and cool and moist, keep the evaporation down. So guys, in addition to the bugs and worms and all this sort of stuff you're going to introduce into your yard, those are soil bugs. If you wanted to, once you really get your yard going, you could introduce predator insects. So you could introduce predatory nematodes into your soil, because having wood chips and stuff like that around, you are going to wind up with grubs in your soil. Grubs are a great decomposer, but they also feed on plant roots. So a lot of trees are going to be okay with them because they just have such an extensive root system. But if you have a lot of newer plants and you plant them late in the season and they go through the winter, those grubs might eat all the roots from your plants and kill your plants over the winter. They won't do it so much in the summer, but in the winter it could become an issue. So predatory nematodes, you could spray those down. There's 3 main types. It's very easy. You get a packet, you mix it with water, warm water, you put it in a hose end sprayer, and you spray it down on your ground. The best time to do it would be during a monsoon storm or something like that, where the water could really wash them down into the soil. And those will kill pretty much every sort of grub that's in the soil. So you won't have to worry too much about those eating your plant roots. So then we got the issue of all these bugs. You don't want them getting too crazy in your yard, so you are going to need predators. What I do is in the wash behind my house, all right? It's not so much a wash, it's more of a water retention area for my community, all right? All the street water and everything runoff drains into the street, runs into the storm drains, runs through a culvert into the retention area behind my house. And in the monsoon season, I get pretty much a lake back there for, depends how much rain we get. It could last 2 weeks. And what happens is the spade-footed toads come out, okay? And they lay all their eggs in there, and the tadpoles hatch and they start swimming around. Then it takes about 2-3 weeks for those guys to get big enough to where they could actually hop around on their own and not rely on the puddles of water. And in the meantime, the water starts drying up and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller if we don't have another storm. So I go out there with my kids and we scoop them into a little tank and we bring them into the backyard and we put them in our pond. And those guys, whoever makes it, and they will hop out of the pond eventually and go into the wood chips and start eating all the overabundance of isopods and worms and whatever else is crawling around in the wood chips. So they keep my soil life under control so it doesn't explode and turn into a big disaster back here. So if you guys are interested in tadpoles, when the monsoons hit and we start getting them, I'm going to do a video on them. And if you want some, you can come by and you can have some tadpoles for free. Not going to charge you for that. But they make great predators. They're spade-footed toads. They're not the snoring desert toads. So they're not, as far as I can tell, they're not poisonous to animals. I had dogs. I had to put them down. They got really old. I put them down last year, so I don't have any more dogs, but they never bothered with the toads. I do have cats, and the cats literally won't go near the toads. either. I don't know if it's the smell or whatever. They just don't bother with them. They don't even look at them. So as far as I could tell, they're not harmful to animals. You can do your research. I don't want to kill your pets, but in my experience, I've never had any problems with them around pets. But like I said, if you guys want those, you know, midsummer when we're starting to have those monsoons, I'm going to have a ton of them. If you guys want to come by and pick some up, you're more than welcome to. But toads are predators. They're meat eaters. They don't eat plants or anything like that. They eat bugs. So they will control the bug population in your backyard. Great thing. The toads burrow down into the soil during the day. They're not out. They only come out at night. And usually they don't go very far from the hole they came out of in the soil. So every night you could say hi to your toad friends. If you water your yard, irrigate it, whatever, they'll come out too. As long as the temperatures are above like 60 degrees at night, they usually come out at night and start predating. Another thing you can do is you can get praying mantises. I know Lowe's and Home Depot sell praying mantis egg sacs. And I think they're a little overpriced. They're 12, 15 bucks or whatever. But you can just take one of those and, you know, tie it in a tree somewhere in your yard in the shade and let them hatch out. And they're awesome predators. Really cool to watch. And they will run around. They'll eat all the aphids and ants and stuff like that. So they'll take care of a lot of that. If you mulch like I do, you'll wind up with spiders. So we got a lot of wolf spiders around the yard. They can bite you. It probably wouldn't hurt you so much, but if you have kids or something like that, you might want to be careful. Tell them don't play with the spiders, but they're also another great predator. Don't kill them. Wasps, hornets, yellow jackets. I get those all summer long. 2 years ago, I was freaking out because I have my young daughter, my grandson walking around the yard. I didn't want him getting stung, but I put up a wasp trap and I never caught any. But the good thing is wasps are also predators. They will kill caterpillars, hornworms, stuff that's going to eat the leaves off your plants. A lot of times they will eat them or lay their eggs in them, and the eggs hatch inside of them and eat them from the inside out. So they're also good. I don't want wasp nests in my yard. I'm sure you guys don't either. So if you see them building a nest, maybe go out there with some protective clothing and just, you know, knock it down, throw it in the trash so you don't get a wasp, yellow jacket, or hornet nest in your yard, because that wouldn't be good. It's okay if they're in your yard hanging out, but you don't want them setting up shop in your yard. Follow what I mean? So basically what I'm getting at with this is, you know, when you start inviting all this soil life into your yard, the soil life is going to attract above ground life. So you're going to have a natural ecosystem. You may have an occasional cockroach running through the yard, not a big deal. If you have all this stuff outside, you got food, shelter, water, all that sort of stuff for them outside. They're not going to come in your house. All right. Another thing people worry about is roof rats. You know, it's a huge misconception out here. People think, you know, oh, I have this, I have that, you know, all the fruit, I'm going to wind up with roof rats. It's not going to be the case. All right. Roof rats mainly eat seeds and nuts. You look it up. They eat seeds and nuts. If they're eating oranges, grapefruits, basically, you know, a lot of people have issues with citrus. They're not after eating the citrus. What they're after is the water in the citrus, okay? So if you grow a food forest like I have, you're not going to wind up with all these rodents invading and looking for food, because they're not after your fruit. They're after nuts and seeds, all right? If you're growing nuts and seeds, you may have a problem. Don't grow millet. Don't grow stuff like that in your yard. That may attract roof rats. All right. If you do get roof rats, Amazon has very great cheap traps. They're small. They don't kill the animal. You can catch it. You can drive out into the desert, release it far away from your house, hopefully far away from other people's houses, so you don't give them an issue too. But peanut butter works great for that. Put it on the trap. Again, they're into nuts. I know peanuts aren't a nut. They're a legume, but they seem to love it. So Get your trap, put some peanut butter on it, put it in your roof, and you'll catch them probably in an hour or two. I mean, they're looking for food, water, shelter. There's their food. They'll go into the trap. So the main point of this video, guys, is build your soil life. If you have to, you can use fertilizers for the first couple of months or whatever. Not a big deal. Don't go out wasting your money on worm castings and all this other expensive crap that's not going to help you in the long run. If you could start your hole for your plant, you know, a month or two in advance, water it, you know, just like if the plant was there, water it to help flush the soil out and let it equalize itself and integrate and everything. Get your soil life in there, your worms, your isopods. Get your compost in there, you know, your composting in place, get that done, and then plant your plant. You'll probably be better off. You might avoid any sort of nutrient deficiencies or anything that may arise. But like I said, it takes about anywhere from a couple of months to almost a year for your soil to really develop. But once that happens, I guarantee you won't need to add anything other than water and compost. All right, you're going to attract all this life and you're going to love it. If you have issues with any sort of pests like ants, termites, aphids, stuff like that, you can spray for them. I wouldn't hose down your soil because you may kill the soil life. But you could try for ants, you could try dumping boiling water on it. That will boil the roots of your plant too if it's in there. But if it's just a little spot treatment, it should be okay. Keep it away from the base of the plant. If you want to spray your leaves, if you have aphids or something, you could always spray those leaves. And then, you know, wash it off like a day later or something. Little tip here, don't spray your leaves or your plants with anything. I don't care what it is, neem oil, any sort of pesticides. Do not do it in the morning. You're better off doing it in the evening, because a lot of times if you spray it, the sun hits it and it burns your leaves. Okay, so try to spray at night. It's going to be cooler out anyway, especially in the summers here. If you have soil life, good soil life, a lot of times you'll be able to avoid all these pests. All right, aphids and stuff like that, they usually crawl through the soil and up into the plant. Sometimes ants will carry them in there and farm them. But with soil life, you know, you're creating a natural ecosystem, predator and prey. So, you know, I usually don't have problems with aphids, scale insect, white flies. And if I do, I try to figure out a natural solution. What predators are going to take care of them for me? How did they get there? Did ants bring them there? You know, I'll try to get rid of the ants. But ants, another thing people don't realize is if you have ants in your yard, you're probably not going to have termites, because ants are the #1 predator for termites, from what I've read. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So if you have ants, you're probably not going to get termites. If you do find termites in your yard, get rid of them. You don't want them getting into your house. But yeah, I would mainly keep an eye out for ants. Ants are going to be somewhat of an issue. Even if you don't have mulch and stuff like that, even if you have a desert landscape yard, you're still going to have ants. But as far as you know, insects eating your plants go, the soil life is going to help immensely. A lot of trees like mulberries and stuff like that, they're really not prone to getting attacked by bugs so much. For whatever reason, they just don't really want to eat them. I think they might have an issue with nematodes, but that's not really here in the valley. That's more in tropical areas, I think. So, like I said before, soil life is your top priority. Soil life brings everything else. It's going to make your plants grow great. And if you need to spot treat, don't hesitate. Here are my tree collards. These guys bolted. They're going to seed. These are all the seed pods right here. And I had an issue with aphids on these guys. I blasted them with the hose and they went away. I think some are back. I think those are aphids right there. So I'm going to blast them with the hose again, but since we have praying mantises running around the backyard, guess what praying mantises eat when they're babies? Aphids. So if you come around to this side, here's some here that are ready to harvest. These are all dried out. I'm going to trim them off today and probably give them out to some friends and grow some. Here's some more. You can see these aphids on here. They look like little blobs. Blast them off with the hose. And you're probably good enough to go for another week or two before you have to do it again. Just keep an eye on them. For whatever reason, they're eating the seed pods. But like I said, there's praying mantises running around eating these guys, so I don't want to spray chemicals on them. So this right here is a donor plant. I composted right here, and I don't know, it's some sort of melon or something. I have no idea, but it popped up. It's starting to put out flowers, and big thing with these guys, any sort of melons or pickles or cucumbers or anything like that, you do not want to over fertilize these. If you give them too much nitrogen, it attracts aphids. All right, they'll be completely destroyed by aphids. So with these sorts of vines, if you do it the natural way, the way I say to do it, it's going to get plenty of food. All you got to do is add water. It'll grow like a weed, and you won't get the aphids. So with these, do not fertilize them too much. You know, I had one customer, I showed him my grapevine here. This is 1 year old, started from a 6-inch cutting. I planted it last summer, and it's already got grapes on it. It is a seedless Concord grape, all right? My favorite grape. I highly recommend this one. Apparently it grows very well here in the valley, and I think it actually grows pretty well throughout the country. All right, I used to live, I'm originally from the New York, New Jersey border, the Hudson River Valley area, and Concord grapes grew great there. And as you can see, this guy here, he's got grapes everywhere. All right, so I had a customer not too long ago, and he was telling me that he tried to go grow grapes, and they got completely decimated by whiteflies. And he didn't want to spray anything on it, so he just let it die. Now, I have this grapevine, I got another one in the front yard, and with my living soil down here, there's some pond scum from my pond, wood chips, and yes, I have to mow and pull out some weeds. Got a lot of grass and weeds growing in here. Haven't gotten to that yet, but with the soil life, I've never had any whiteflies, and I hear a lot of people complain about whiteflies and grapevines, and I've just never had any problems. I've been growing grapes for years. They always grow good. So I was talking to this gentleman, and he was buying some plants from me, and he looked at it and he thought the same thing. Well, it's got to be all the soil life and all the bugs that I have running around in the yard. So he said he's going to give it a go again, and he's going to mulch and follow my guidelines and see where it gets him. And hopefully I hear back from him. He lets me know how it did. Here's another good thing, guys. Moringa flowers like crazy, all right? You can see there's bees in here. These white flowers, they're very, very attracted to them. Bees are great pollinators. They're not going to make a nest in your yard usually. So if you can grow Moringa, that'll attract your bees. Hummingbirds. There's a hummingbird that claimed this tree, and he fights off all the others that come by. But Moringa flowers, you could eat them. You can just pick these guys right off, these flowers, and eat them. They're very healthy for you. Just make sure you don't eat one with a bee in it. But like I said, we're trying to create a natural ecosystem here, and we need pollinators. So I hope this video is helpful, guys. I'm kind of in a pinch for time, like I usually am with these videos. I got just a day before I got to get this edited and posted, so I hope I didn't jump around too much. Hope it wasn't too boring. And in the meantime, guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, tell all your friends. If you guys have any requests, suggestions, anything like that, leave them down in the comments. And until the next video, guys, keep growing.